Hi, it's Majo John Madden broadcasting from my darkened camper van behind the Hampton Inn Hotel in Ciudad Victoria, Mexico, where I have broadcast many times before, but not for a long time. This is going to be kind of a complex video because I'm going to include audio from my other phone, which I have two iPhones, one of which has phone service and the other which I use for videos and WhatsApp, and it does a lot of things at a Wi-Fi that it won't do otherwise. So I've been in Mexico I got here on March 13th, and if today is the 28th of April, about a month and a half. And it's been kind of wild and woolly, challenging in many respects. I arrived in Ciudad Victoria on the 15th and spent one night at the Hampton Inn, which was a great investment finally, because it turned out the people at the Hampton Inn were enormous allies who were supportive of me in so many different ways. After one night here, I told them I was really surprised in getting to Victoria to realize that the mountains were at our doorstep. They rise up very sharply right from the street in front of the hotel. I was aiming towards Tampico to get to the ocean, and my whole destination in Mexico is to get to the ocean. And I thought it would have to be a whole nother trip that I would see the mountains. But actually the Sierra Madre Oriental eastern range run north to south in the east half of Mexico and come right by here. They don't end here. They actually trail off towards the Rio Grande. They go right up to the U.S. But at their max, they're up to 12,000 feet. Not here. They're not as tall here. But they're like twice as tall as the Appalachian Mountains that I was so in love with back my first year on the road. So I said to the people at the hotel, I want to get up in those mountains. How do I do it? And they said, well, there's Los Troncones Parque Ecologico, which you cannot even find on Apple GPS. It was only on Google GPS that I could find it. And they actually kind of lowball it around here. They say, well, they're pretty. I found them stunning. So we went out there for 48 hours, me and Magic, and at that time we had the little puppy, Pepe, who's not with us anymore. And had 2 spectacular days out there. Came back, and right away my car broke down. Ended up behind the Hampton Inn. And what followed it was from the 18th to the 6th of April that we were either broken down behind the Hampton and staying in the camper van, or then my new mechanic that friends who I met at the hotel got me to, great Mexican, 3rd generation mechanic, super unlicensed mechanic who works really cheap compared with in the U.S. Towed it to his shop in town, and then when I finally got my money at the end of March, I had money for him to tow it over to his dad's shop, which is on the outskirts of town, and a place that would be appropriate for us to go out there. He gave me a ride out there, me and Magic, and we stayed in the van at the Mechanics Bay out there in the neighborhood. It's the little village of La Libertad, and they call that whole area Los Troncones because you look at the Los Troncones section of the Sierra Madre, and out there they don't even recognize the big range, the Sierra Madre range. They only know the Los Troncones mountains. And so out there we spent from the 6th to the 19th. 6th to the 19th 13 days on the compound of the mechanic shop. Now, these are poor Mexicans. These are people who are just barely making it day to day, and their compound showed it. They were in survival mode. And an unfortunate thing about Mexico is dogs are not appreciated in Mexico the way they are in the U.S. There aren't anywhere near as many people keeping dog pets. There are an awful lot of stray dogs. It is very typical that Mexican people don't value or appreciate dogs like in the U.S. And even in the U.S., nowhere near enough. But on that compound, there were 7 dogs, not counting 5 puppies, who had somehow shown up on the compound, even though nobody on that compound liked dogs. No, they didn't like dogs. They didn't feed them. They didn't give them love, and they did not give them food except for occasional scraps. So one of the things that was really hard for me out there was that I was constantly surrounded by dogs who desperate for love and desperate for food. And I did my best to give them both. Gave them lots of love and as much food as I could sneak them. But I was broke because by the time I had chewed up 5 nights in the hotel, I had spent $400 on hotel bills and didn't even have enough to pay my mechanic for more than parts and sending part of the engine out to a machine shop to be fixed. So I was reliant on them for food, and I participated in some of the food insecurity that the dogs were going through. But I was determined that, by God, my dog would never go to bed hungry, and I made sure he didn't. But boy, those other dogs could smell the kibble in the car, and they were desperate to get into the car. The dog out there that was least appreciated, he was the newest to arrive, the largest, the most dominant. The guy, big brown dog, beautiful dog actually, who was most likely to aggressively shove the other dogs out of the way to get more than his share of the food, did not have a name. They did not give dogs names because they get killed out on the street. They die of starvation. We don't attach to them. And this dog they actually would throw rocks at to make him go away. Well, I pretty quickly deduced that this dog actually, maybe more than any of the other dogs, really wanted a relationship with a human being. And I partly saw that happen because after he once pounced on my dog Magic, when Magic the next day snapped at him, he took it. He didn't get aggressive. He just said, "Oh, okay, good. Well, maybe now we can be friends because you seem to be my equal." And they became very close, hunting buddies, running haunch by haunch. And I singled him out to give him more love than any of the other dogs, and he really lapped it up. He just couldn't get enough of me. Enough so that when finally the car was running and we were able to move it, it was too dark to drive it to the park where I wanted to go, but I moved it just about a quarter of a mile away. I had found a little pull-out, and I just couldn't get off of that compound fast enough. And when I got to that spot a quarter of a mile away, I found that Bear was the name I had given this dog, had followed us. They had said, "No, you don't have to worry," because I was like the Pied Piper with the dogs. They were just with me all the time like a sea. But our host said, no, they won't leave the compound. You don't have to worry about them following us. But he did. And I already loved him, and I was feeling terrible about abandoning all those dogs to that terrible situation. But he was the one I felt worst about because he was treated the worst. And he was the sweetest of the bunch, clearly. So when we got to our parking spot that night, and I realized he was still with us, I said, "Good going, champ. You're on the team. Welcome to the Madden family." And he has been on our family ever since. And that's been like 10 days now, I guess, he's been with us. Because we're off in the Los Chancones Park for 8 days, and now we've been back in Victoria for 2 days. and he's turned out to be a spectacular dog. And I've been looking for a way to, because our hosts, the husband and wife, they're so struggling to get food on the table for their 3 kids and to make his mechanic shop work. They're overwhelmed all the time. And they have frozen their hearts towards the dogs. And I was looking for a way to tell them how sad that is. And Course in Miracles says everybody at all times is either offering you love or asking for it. And I had said to someone out there, and I said to her, the wife, I said, freezing your heart towards those dogs does you damage more even than them. So now that we've been back downtown, and it gets more obvious to me today what a truly wonderful dog this is, tonight I took the chance to try to communicate with the wife about Bear and who he really is that they never saw. And I did it through WhatsApp because they use WhatsApp down here a lot. And one of the things I love about WhatsApp is that you can go back and forth between voice message and text message. Super easy. So I left her a couple of voice messages about him and a couple of long text messages about him. So I'm going to play a voice message, and let's see how that comes through. I was worried that Bear, the name I gave to the big dog I adopted off of your compound, would be wild and difficult to manage in challenging situations. He has actually turned out to be a total lamb. He walks on a leash like he's done it forever, never pulls on the leash, just wants to be by me. I don't know if I told you that he chose to come with us. On Wednesday night when we left your compound and drove a quarter-mile away for the evening, he followed us. When I realized he had done that, I said, "Good work, champ. Welcome to the team. You're part of the family." So I'm going to call her Maria. I want to protect the privacy of my hosts. That's not her name, but I'm going to call her Maria. And she responded by saying, "That's great." And then I sent her another voice message on WhatsApp. One way that Bear does betray the fact that he's always been a street dog is that he does not like to be in the car. Magic loves to sleep in the car, but Bear resists it. Last night when he was sleeping outside the car and I was asleep, some guy thought he was a stray and took him by the leash back to his car. Later on, he came back and woke me up and asked if it was my dog. I said, yeah. He led me back to his truck and said, "Poor dog, he has been crying." He never got aggressive, he just cried. Now that guy... When I do need him to be in the car, he really fights it. Never aggressively, just does not want to get in. So what I do in that situation is I just lift him up and shove him into the car. He never gets aggressive with me at all. He just doesn't like it. But then he adjusts fine to being in the car. And I think Magic is happier in the car with company, because Magic does not cry as much as he used to when I would leave him alone in the car. Now the crazy background noise you hear on those audios, we park way at the back of the huge parking lot behind the hotel, but I can't pull a Wi-Fi there. Up close to the building, because we're not paying here now, and they're just out of the generosity of their hearts letting us park back here because it's private and a safe place to have the dogs at night in a big city. It's quite a big city. But to get the Wi-Fi, I can sit out by the pool and I pulled the Wi-Fi. So what you're hearing in the background is people swimming and splashing around in the pool and talking and stuff. So the guy who took Magic last night was actually the night guy who works around the grounds, who I had never met before. I know the daytime guy. So there's those, and she said, yeah, they adapt very easy. He will be okay. And I said, when we were walking in the woods at Los Troncones, sometimes he would go chasing places with Magic, but a lot of the time he wanted to just walk next to me. I think that's why he's adjusting to the leash so much, is that he really loves to just walk right at my side. I think he's never had a real person who cares about him before. So she responded to that by saying, yep, here in Mexico, only the strong survive. It isn't like in the States. And she says, after so many losses, you disconnect from animals in general. And I replied, I took a risk and went right to the heart of it and said, Bear did not create his escape with me by being strong. He did that by holding on to the capacity to be vulnerable, even in the face of all his losses over a very hard life. This is very poignant because she's saying, I can't afford to be vulnerable anymore. I have to harden my heart. And I'm saying, well, he kept his heart open. It's not by being strong that he got with me. It was because he continually sought out connection with me. Again and again, he offered himself for connection with me. He was warm and loving. He made it obvious. There's a car rolling out in the background, a big truck. He made it obvious to me that he was hungry for a relationship. I learned to love him because he showed his soft, vulnerable side with me. That is why he's with me now. She said, so she softened. She said, hopefully he stays with you till his rest of his life. So that was pretty nice. She was softening. I have already encountered many ways that having 2 dogs is going to be harder than having 1. But having 2 dogs to love is better than having just 1 dog to love. And Bear has bonded with Magic, the dog has been with me for a year, as closely as he has bonded with me. They are like brothers. Bear's commitment to me has created in me a strong commitment to him. He has opened my heart to him, and he has. I'm crazy about that dog. He's so sweet. I've already decided that I will probably not try, and this just happened today, I will probably not try to go to places like Mexico City or even San Miguel de Allende, south of Mexico City, where I was going to move to about 13 years ago. So that's a place I was really attached to going, and everybody says it's gorgeous, but crowded and bad traffic. Places that would be hard to manage with 2 dogs who like a lot of space to run. It is worth it to me to sacrifice exciting options like those 2 cities because I prefer relationship over excitement. And this has made that clear to me. Bear has caused me to love him, and I can't bear the idea of ever letting him down. And she said, I know. And then, praise God, there was a really soft ending to the evening. After some back and forth about some business stuff, she wrote and said, tomorrow's another day, because she had worked hard with me to fix my Telcel Mexican phone problems, because I couldn't make calls to the U.S. and only later found out Telcel doesn't make calls to the U.S. I've got to use either Skype or also get back on my old T-Mobile service. But she said, but tomorrow's another day. Good night, John. Thanks, Hazel. I love the thought that tomorrow's another day. It was good working with you today on this. I really appreciate that. With all the other responsibilities you are handling, you took the time to focus on this. And at one point we were trying to brainstorm stuff, and she had a crying baby in the background. I said, hey, call me back when the baby's better. And you did some, I said to her, and you did some really good thinking. I was reaching. It's true. I didn't say anything that wasn't true. But I wanted to give her some affirmation at the end of the day. And this is very true. It's been a lonely time for me, traveling 3 years with just a dog, needing to figure everything out myself. That's been very true for 3 years. Always figuring everything out myself has been great for me, but it's been hard. I said to her, anytime I get the chance to work on a project with another person, I feel grateful. I hope you sleep well tonight. And she said, thank you, likewise. So that's the ballad of Bear the dog. And I have another video that's going to be posted tomorrow called 13 Days at the Compound. And in that and in other videos, you'll get to see Bear. Okay.